Okay, this is really dark. All of a sudden, when I look at it, it looks normal under the other camera, but this one, the effect is really dark. Just as well, you can't see my double chin. What I recorded a video earlier, but I didn't get my face in the video, so I have to do it again. And let me see, the television's on. I'm too nervous to talk without with it being totally um, quiet in here. I'm watching Leah Remini. That's really sad. But anyway, um, oh man, I've been thinking about the occurrence and on the first out here in Las Vegas, and it seems like the I have to be respectful, but the security guard is sort of caught in the middle. It looks like between the story that they want to put out, that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and the Mandalay Bay, the way they want to frame things, and I guess he's got to be careful. And this, you might be saying, well, what you're talking about has nothing to do with that, and it doesn't. I'm not, I bless those people that were affected, but it just, if you're wondering why he's in the middle of things, hopefully my story will give you a little bit of insight. Well, I'm so scared to say all of this. In my first video, I went way, way, way back to when I first made contact with Metro, when I worked at Citibank, and how that has turned into decades of controversy and harrowing details. Everything from complete strangers saying sexual things to me, that just make me go berserk, because they had said something sexual to me, to being physically attacked, having to defend myself, to having my home broken into, and that's where I'll start. No, I'll start at the Citibank. Okay. I was a temp in the customer service division of Citibank, and I happened to share my desk. I worked nights, worked overnight, and swing shift, and the day person worked during the day, and they happened to work for NHP. And I didn't think anything of it. I never even saw the woman, but I saw her pictures, and her husband had, some insignia or whatever on her. She had her husband's insignia on her desk, and I just noticed, weird things. Like I put something there because we were supposed to be temp to hire, so it was my desk too, or was going to be my desk. And it would be moved. It would be moved off. She wanted to share a desk with me, and I thought that's weird because we're not even ships passing in the night. We don't see each other. She doesn't know anything about me. I don't know anything. I don't know what the woman looks like to this day. But one night got off around 1, and I was going on the freeway, and I noticed there was a car in my blind spot. You know how you can just feel that. And I looked over, and there was a car in my blind spot. And I sort of, drove. I said, wow, is this someone following me home? What's going on? So I drove to avoid it. It turned out to be a cop. And I got stopped, and it escalated and ended very badly. And it was just a whole explosion of badness. I'm not going to even go into all of that. But you know how it's worked out for people who have not lived through it, it hasn't been that good. And they were like, "You're alive. You're not in jail, so we're not paying you any money. Get out of here. We're not compensating you. Get out of here." So I went on. I led my life. I didn't think much about it, and weird. Like I remember, told you before, weird things would happen. You know, just as complete strangers coming out of the woodwork saying weird things to you, to me. Um, and then, my illness got worse. I, ended up losing my condo, not necessarily because of Metro, but because my illness got worse, and I ended up, getting back on my feet and moving into a little studio apartment on this. If you're in Vegas, you know Nellis Boulevard, and it was Northeast Nellis Boulevard. So you know what that area is about, and you probably know what I'm talking about. And at the time, it was an idyllic place. It was cheap, it was maintained, it was small, but it was it was mainly casino workers. Maybe you even see a few people from the base living there, not a lot, because it was, like maybe to get a better deal someplace else. But then everything was going well. I was living there, and then the Great Recession hit. So you found a lot of people leaving, a lot of casino workers, and even people who were working at Walmart all of a sudden couldn't afford their apartments and they were moving on. There was never a strong military presence there because, like I said, they probably could get better deals elsewhere, and it was getting rough. First the the managers changed, and then it started getting rough. You started seeing a whole different sort of people. You started seeing like they were teenagers renting apartments right next to me, obvious teenagers, and I'm like, this is weird. Not 18, maybe 18, but not 18. And then teenagers come with younger teenagers, and it was bad. So, they had no visible means of support. They didn't leave to go to work at any time, and it just looked like someone told me, yeah, you can sell drugs and pay your rent. And they weren't even doing that very well, because they were kids. So I was like, wow, what am I going to do? So I just kept to myself, and, we had this in management, and they were, first came the bed bugs. Okay? And, the bed bugs, they migrated to my apartment, and I was like, what I got to do to get you guys to work on this? And they did, and they told me that whole debacle got me in the sights of the manager. I don't even remember her name, but there was a female manager there, and she had a lot of weird rules all of a sudden, and like there was more than there were people there who were rough all of a sudden. It went from casino workers, people who worked for a living, people who are on a monthly stipend, just regular apartment dwellers, to people who you were wondering, how are they paying the rent? What's going on with this? I remember walking my dog, and two men, disheveled men, came out of her apartment, and they were fighting. I didn't see that with the old one, but I once again kept my mouth shut. And then the harassment started. I I was persona non grata in a sense. I was not wanted there, and I couldn't really figure out why. Was the official reason was this guy was saying, you know, um, we we didn't match complexion wise. So people had a problem with that, that the manager had a problem with that, and people started making all sorts of weird assumptions, and weird allegations. Even though he was the only man that ever came to my door that wasn't related to me, and my parents didn't even come that often. But it was just me and my dog, you know, and me, So I started getting threats. People stand outside my door threatening me. Look outside someone's skedaddling off. There was a group of teenagers, and it sounded like teenagers yelling. They just roam this apartment complex and yell just vulgar, horrible things. And they had security. Could tell people you can't sit on the landing at night. Nobody sits outside at night anymore. Adults, you're telling this to an adult at 8 in the evening that they can't sit in front of their apartment. Okay, but you can hear these teenagers at first I thought, well, maybe they belong to the trailer park next door. So I went to one of the security and I just happened, do you hear that at night? These boys yelling, do you know where that comes from? And then it stopped. And then, the people next door ended up leaving. The kids, the weird situation with them, they ended up leaving because they couldn't figure out how to get the rent paid. So I would hear people come in there and say horrible things. I would hear people above me say horrible things. They had, you see women who were homeless, obviously did not have an official apartment there, who hung out in the parking lot of this place, and you see them come out of that apartment, you see them come out of that apartment, and then this is insane. It got violent. Somebody got stabbed in this place under this new management, and meanwhile I'm just gritting my teeth, bearing it, getting into it with the manager, because she's obviously sending these people to attack me. And then one day the coup de grace happened for me, because I went over with the vermin. I was walking around when I walked my dog with my phone ready, and one day I had it ready because I was walking my dog and I had the phone out, and I was recording the cat calls and the threats, and then I came back and I just had the phone sitting there recording outside my door. And then I had one of her minions, I heard one of her minions say something, yeah, she's been recording me, she's bothering me. And then she said, yeah, we'll get her out. And that irritated me, because I was like, get me out. I want to get out. I called you earlier and I asked you to let me out of my lease, and you said, well, you would owe us $1,500. And I didn't have $1,500 to pay at one time. And how am I going to get a new apartment with the old apartment saying on her credit report she owes us $1,500 because she didn't pay 3 months rent to get out in advance to get out of her lease. So I went up there and I said, yeah, you know what, you've been saying all this crazy stuff to me. He went in his apartment and I was talking to her. And then I had my phone in my hand and she's right here, and the phone's right here. And then I look at her name tag. For some reason that got her crazy. And she went to hit me, and then we boom, boom, boom. And then, they never officially evicted me. We didn't go to eviction court, but I did, catch a charge, and, I paid a fine, but I didn't go to jail. I paid the fine, and I went on to another apartment safely, without anybody breaking in, without any weird stuff. So I moved to Viking, and I was getting harassed there. I was predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. I'm a black female by myself. I don't have a problem with anybody, but the people above me, I don't know what their deal was, but they would sit outside on the landing and just casually inward rolling out their mouth. I couldn't even sit on my patio at times because, I go to the Palms, come back, and they're sitting there, after making threats, so I recorded. The management over there was a lot better, but I would call the police. The police wouldn't show up for hours later. Like, if they showed up, you know, police come over there and they have the attitude with me. I'm the one who called them. I can even understand if someone called me and I'm blaring music or I'm raging or whatever. But I'm just sitting there in my apartment or maybe I am able to sit outside for a little while and they come up and what do you call it for? You know. But anyway, I made it out of there. I didn't renew my lease. They thought, it's because I moved on to the third place. And the third place was a 55 and over complex. And I said, this is where I need to be. You could be there if you were 36 with a disability, a documented disability. And the rent was a little more, but it was a one bedroom. And the electricity wasn't included. No, it wasn't included in either one. It was included at no or something like that at the time. But anyway, I digress. So I move in there, and then I had a relative ask me to go on a vacation. Right after I moved in, maybe a day or two after I moved in, I got everything settled, got the furniture in there, and then 2 days later, I packed up my dog, dropped it over at another relative's house, and went on vacation with this relative. I get a call while I'm on vacation driving down the road out of state, and I get a call from the manager on my cell phone. And I said, hello? And the manager is like surprised. She's like, is this Andrea? And I said, yes. She said, where are you? I said, I'm out of state. I'm not in Las Vegas. And she said, your door's open. So I said, oh man, I know I closed the door. I know I locked the door. I don't know why it'd be open. She said, well, I'll have my relative that I dropped the dog off with come over and see what's going on, why the door's open. So I called this relative and he's like, you're a flake. You probably left the door ajar. You didn't close it all the way and it opened. So this relative goes over there and they call the relative. They don't call me back. They call the relative that I went on vacation with and they tell her that there's blood. The window's been broken and there's blood all over your apartment. And we discussed it and like, what's going on? Who could do that? Who would come in your apartment and just bleed? So, I'm sitting there, I'm flabbergasted. I'm thinking that someone broke their hand, cut their hand when they opened the door, and all my stuff is missing, and I come back to very shortly, like a day or two after being told that, I come back to Las Vegas, and my relative shows me the pictures, and I said, wow, everything was in a heap in my living room, and then I had the bedroom. Everything was in a heap. You couldn't tell. The television was sitting there, it was a little 22-inch TV, and it's just sitting there, but in his picture, you see a hammer, and you see the front window's broken, and then things are heaping. There's blood on this wall, and there's blood on that wall, and there's blood on this in the kitchen, on the refrigerator, and on my microwave, and on my dishes. I threw all those things out. And then I go in the bedroom, and there's blood on the wall, and there's somebody, overarching is on the ceiling. This has never happened to me. And then, the police, my dad, my my dad was glad I wasn't there. But the relative, took pictures and called the police, and you know, I looked through. At first, I didn't touch anything because CSI hadn't gone through it, and I called them when I got back in town. I called the detective. The relative gave me all the information that the detective. I called the detective, and it was weird because I called the detective and I got some woman. I don't know. She was secretary. I think she was some intermediary. Uh, well, the intermediary. No, because there was two women, and there's some intermediate police officer. But there's two. When the first woman I saw was very nice, very helpful. She told me, I spoke to her, I should say, after my relative gave me the information. She said, "This is your detective," and I called the detective directly, and this intermediate police officer opened, and she whispered, "You bitch," or something like that. I don't remember. And I said, "Is this being recorded?" And she said, "Oh, yeah." Oh, and then she gave me to the detective. So I'm like, this is weird. Well, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't weird, but it was. But, to make a long story short, they took pictures, they took blood samples. To this day, I don't know who did this or why. They know who did this. I don't believe it was a kid. Some people said it was a kid because when we went through it, first we thought that all I had was of any value was the television, a little 22-inch television, and a computer, a little laptop. And, at first I thought they had stolen the laptop, but I found it under the pile of stuff because they took my curio camera and knocked it over. They took the futon and flipped it over. They went in the bedroom and upended the bed and pushed over the dresser. And I at first thought they had cut their hand trying to destroy the mirror, but when I looked at it, the mirror wasn't broken. And the wood around it was broken, but there was no blood on the wood. So I'm thinking somebody brought a weapon, and cut themselves on this weapon. God got me out of there, but I was there for 2 days. You know, um, so someone wanted to scare me. It wasn't a very strong person because the curio cabinet